Hello, everybody. I'm Toby Shifsky. I'm the Vice President of Kaplan Real Estate Education. And today I am joined by two superstars within Kaplan for our real expert presentation. And it's really Kaplan's Buyer Agency Professional course that you can take, and then designation that you can apply for. It's a brand new. As a matter of fact, I can tell everybody it just launched yesterday with its first class. And by all accounts, it was a success. There's a lot of trepidation in the marketplace. There's a lot of unknown and uncertainty since lawsuits. And we're not only going to talk a little bit about why the generation of this course, why it's here, why we're doing it. We're also going to talk and give you some real kind of pointers about what's in the course and designation and what it represents, and kind of what some of those expectations are for you if you do take the course. What can you expect when you're done? What does it mean, and how are you going to use it to differentiate yourself in the marketplace? So without further ado, let me just give a good introduction to Amiee Hanson and Steve Pederson. Amiee is committed. And you guys maybe have seen Amiee before. If you've been in these webinars, she does a kind of a crystal ball with me at least once a year in January that says, hey, here's what's going to happen for the whole year. And surprisingly, we're close on some things and then awfully off on other things. But Amiee.
Yeah, I don't think we predicted this year to happen, Toby.
No,
Settlements and all this other stuff. I mean, I think we're way off. It'd be interesting to see what we had to say.
Yeah, right on. Well, Amiee brings 29 years of experience, over $700 million in transaction sales, has run and owned a brokerage, been a professional witness for legal proceedings, right? Delivers continuing education for Kaplan in 36 different states. Is really a stalwart and a great resource for us at Kaplan. Amiee, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Toby, and thank you for saying the kind things you do.
Well, you know what? When the basket's full, everybody gets to partake. And so Steve Pederson, Steve has been with us since 2005. Steve and I have been around just about the same amount of time. He's a wonderful licensing, continuing education instructor. He helps develop course content, not only for like required module in Minnesota, but also for licensing courses. And he loves to bring his real life experience into the classroom. You could probably see it today too in this webinar. But Steve has a great way of actually delivering a story that says, oh, this is me. I'm the character in the story, and he's telling me about what my life is going to be like, especially in this new world, this new change that has come because of the class action lawsuits. And so, Steve, thank you for being here and appreciate you very much.
Thanks for having me, Toby. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and just so if there's any question, everybody, so you know, these two people are the foundation of our designation course, taking, nearly 30 years of experience teaching in real estate. I mean, Steve's had his license since 1978. So he's come a long way, broker's license since 81. They've seen it all. And here's what I can say. I think it's the biggest change since really the early 1990s, 1991, right? This is what I would call a sea change in the industry that's happening because of the class action commission lawsuits. Steve, maybe you can help us out. Maybe let's start and jump right in. Everybody, you get to play along too. Ask your questions in the chat. We've got Jamie Cash moderating, and you're going to be able to ask questions in the chat. We're going to be able to see the chat. We'll try to grab as many of those questions as possible. You'll also get a chance to play along later in our public forum if you'd like to, and Jamie will put the URL in the chat for you to be able to continue this conversation in our public URL. But the idea is today, Steve, why are we here? I mean, why are we really here? Why did we think we needed to create a buyer agency professional course and designation?
Lawsuit is the big word that comes to mind. And I think most of the folks that are probably watching today are aware of what's taken place with some lawsuits that were filed a number of years ago, and they all came to, at least one of them came to fruition at the end of last year, and the plaintiffs prevailed and the defendants lost. And then, of course, about 2 weeks ago, what was it, March 15th, on a Friday, my phone blew up and it said that the National Association of Realtors had settled this particular lawsuit. And if you haven't read the settlement, and I know Amiee and I have both read it, it's what is it, Amiee? 108 pages?
108 pages, Steve.
Yeah, and it's a tough read, I will tell you.
It
It's written
is.
by attorneys. I had
Yeah.
to scan it more than once. But there's a lot of changes. You know, Toby mentioned that the early 90s was the last big change we did in Minnesota here. And that's when all of our agency things changed and we went to buyer brokerage. We actually began using a buyer broker contract. We're one of the few states in the country. I think right now there's about 18 states that
Yep.
use buyer broker agreements. We've been using them here in Minnesota since 1992, 1993.
Yep.
So this is huge. What we have coming down the pike here with the settlement, and they're telling us it's all going to be kicking in sometime in July. This is the biggest thing in my career ever. I mean,
Yeah,
real
mine
estate,
too.
real estate's been done the same way the last 50, 60, 70 years. And it's going to be done a little bit differently. And we need to be prepared for that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think you kind of stated it well. A business was being transacted a certain way. Somebody found a front with it. They sued. It was determined by federal jury, right? There are other players involved in this too, though, like the Department of Justice stepping in some of these settlements. And by the way, the settlement isn't quite all done yet. It's proposed, but it's actually not been ratified. Is that right, Steve?
That's my understanding.
Yeah,
And
it has not
you
been
know what?
approved.
Anything can happen. It still has to be finally approved.
Yeah.
And like you say, I think the Justice Department might still be tinkering around, or there's the possibility that the Department of Justice is tinkering around at the federal level.
Yeah.
We're not going to know for sure until it comes in. All we have are some guidelines and some bumper pads, right, to see what they think that we're going to be doing here in the next 3 or 4 months.
You know, and
Right.
the practice changes that have come along as a result of this suit, regardless whether the settlement is approved by the courts or not, you're
Yeah,
still going to have the practice changes.
It's already changed.
July,
The
it's
course
already
has left
happening.
alone.
So that's why we're here to, help you navigate
Yeah.
that. And I'm sure BAP will evolve over time too, because like even since we started writing this, Toby, in November, right? Was it November, Steve, that they contacted us?
Yep.
I don't know how many times we had to change the course because breaking news, and tomorrow there might be more breaking news. So whatever's happening, it's happening very quickly, right? At lightning speed. And so is BAP.
And so is BAP. Right on. So we are updating the course regularly so that you're getting the most up-to-date and accurate information possible in the market. And so it's being done live online. It's an 8-hour course. There is a final exam at the end. You have to pass it in order to actually apply for your designation.
8-hour course.
Yeah, it's an 8-hour course.
Correct. Oh, I thought you said 80. I'm like, what?
80? Oh my gosh.
I was like, wait a second, I'm dead by that point. I mean, but no,
right,
yeah, 8.
Let's do this. I want to see who's actually here with us today. We've got hundreds of people on, and I want to make sure that we know who's on. Lots of times we get a lot of people who are still sitting in their licensing education. We get a lot of people who are, I would say, licensed for as long as I have been or Steve has been. And so I want to ask a poll question. And the question is, how long have you been in the real estate business? Everybody participate and play along. All your poll questions, your answers are anonymous, so nobody sees your stuff, right? So don't put it in the chat if you can. Answer the poll question if you could. And if you're on your phone, you might have to swipe your screen to get to the poll question if you've moved around or you're just listening to it. So go ahead and take a look at that poll question. I will always post the answers. One thing while people are putting in their poll question, we had a couple of people ask, am I going to get the designation after this webinar? No. This webinar is about the designation, as in it's about the course. It's about why, what's in it, what value do you get. It is a little bit of an infomercial about the course, but we are going to cover 3 things that we think you're going to need to do in the new world, or you won't be representing buyers. It's kind of that simple. Because I think Steve was going to share a little story maybe in a little bit that talks about why things have changed and how it's changed in the day in the life of an agent who represents buyers. And that's really going to come to a really striking change come July. All right, let's go ahead and share the results of the poll. And this is a really good one. All right, everybody, take a look at this. We got 31% of the people are currently taking classes at Kaplan. Good for you. You're in your licensing. Go, man, go. Times of change are great times of opportunity. you may be in fact, I just listened to a president of a very large real estate company a week and a half ago stand on stage and talk about when she got into the real estate business in 2008. And if you can remember, 2008 was the time of the mortgage and financial crisis back, the last big change in our industry. And what we find is leaders get into the business when times are tough and through change, and because they are able to adapt quickly. So I love it.
Well, and how about coming into this world as a new agent with that fresh perspective, not jaded by how the things were in the past?
Well,
You know,
it could be an advantage, right? Absolutely.
yeah,
All right, so
what a great place to be.
Less than 3 years, 23%, 3 to 5 years, 7% of you, 5 to 10, 10%. Look at this, 10 plus years, 21% of you. Good for you. And I know you kind of know that something is up. You've been in the business this long, and you may find that you've got to really change your business. I can tell you who we built the course for. We built it for everybody. And it's about understanding what the new rules are, the new game is, and making sure you can secure your commissions in the future. So let's do this. Let's jump in. And let me do this. Why is it important to take this course? Let me do this. Let me back up one more thing. We built this course. It's 8 hours long. Well, I'm going to start with why it's important. Steve, maybe you can start us off. Well, why do you think it's important for people to understand how big a change is coming in July, and really kind of the impetus behind this course? Because I think we were all standing there back in November, scratching our heads going, well, if this happens, this means this, and this means this, and this means this. Well, give us an example, Steve. Why did we create this course? Why is it important to take it?
Well, let me go back in time. Thinking about when I first got my license over 40 years ago, I remember, and I thought it was kind of cool at the time, a buyer walked into my office, right, and said, hey, we're looking to buy a house. And I said, come on in. And we had books back then, right? We had the MLS books. We didn't have computers at that point. And right off the bat, we started looking at stuff. And he's like, man, I want to go out and look at this house. Can we do that yet today? So I said, sure, let's go ahead and schedule the showings. Now, what I knew or learned very quickly when I got in the business was I could show any property that was on the multiple listing service. And I was pretty much guaranteed a commission in the deal, right? Folks, that is going to be changing. We don't know what amount of sellers are going to be cooperating in compensation to a buyer's broker. That's, in my mind, the biggest change that's going to come down the pike here, right? There will be a prohibition of anything on the multiple listing service that says the seller is paying X%, right? Or the listing agent is paying X%. Now, that can all be negotiated behind the scenes according to the documents that the NAR has provided here. So what are you going to do when you're put in that position, right? When everyone's on the same playing field, right? And I think the expertise in our industry, I think our image in the industry, which I think's taken a beating over the years, I think that's going to raise with what's coming down the pike here. I'm actually kind of excited about some of these changes that are coming into play here. So yeah, we're going to have to come in. We're going to have to let the buyers know. And I know Amiee was teaching her class yesterday, and I was monitoring it. And she said, listen, I'm going to give you the money shot right now. We're going to talk about what you do and what you give to a buyer. And we got done with that little segment there, and our little chat box just blew up. Said, man, this is the best information so far you've given us today on what. So that's a great reason to come and take this class. We're going to give you some really good stuff in that regard, but you're going to have to bring value to the transaction now. It's not just grabbing a buyer the first day and walking out and showing them a house 20 minutes later. In fact, you're going to have something in writing with them. How are you going to make that buyer sign that, right? That's going to be a big issue.
So just to kind of cover a couple things, because you talk about MLSs, and specifically in the settlement, it's the association owned, quasi-owned MLSs, which of the 580 plus MLSs across the country, just over 500 of them are owned by their associations. So not sure where everybody's at. I think I saw people from all over the country.
I'll answer that question for Erica.
Yeah. Some people may not be in an area where the MLS is owned. But the idea is this: the DOJ has stepped in, and the DOJ is going to make sure that, listen, when you're representing a buyer, you're going to need to negotiate your commission with that buyer before you even show them a house. I thought this was one of the most interesting pieces of what's come out of everything so far, is even to show a buyer a house. They're looking at, in fact, Amiee, you could probably tell this part better than I can. What do you think that biggest part of this whole piece is for that buyer representation?
You mean part of, I'm not understanding the question. Like what?
Well, let's say you want to show a buyer a house. What's going to happen right now? Like Steve just.
Well, I mean, that's kind of, we can take up the whole half hour talking about that, Toby. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a process, and I think it's going to boil down to, how you decide to meet with that buyer and what you decide as an agent. Here's the biggest thing about BAP, and somebody put into the comments here, like, how is it different from the free one being offered by, someone else or NAR or whoever it is? And understand, I've been writing for Kaplan for 16 years, right? And we have never developed a class like this that takes you on a journey, okay, of where to start, discovery, and how to get, how to charge through, the storm and come out on the other side, looking good. And that's what BAP is not like anything like the other course. Somebody asked, how is it different then? It's absolutely 100% different than that. Okay. And because this is about development, this is a professional development course. So it's about developing you as an agent, recognizing what you bring to the consumer, understanding what the consumer needs from you. Okay. And it's just, I think it's going to be invaluable.
Yeah.
There's been easy street going on for a lot of these agents for many years, Toby.
Well, let's just say it like it is. So there may be some merit to the lawsuits, right, about representation, because buyer representatives have been receiving a commission that they didn't negotiate, right? And no matter
they didn't have a contract for it. On top of that.
And no matter what level of service they did, they were going to get paid a commission if the house closed and they represented that person, that buyer. Those days are gone. You're not going to get a commission unless you have a buyer on a contract, and you're not going to get paid a commission unless you've negotiated what that commission is with the buyer. So when you go out to show a buyer a home, you're going to have a contract. You're going to have described how you're going to get paid. And you are certainly going to want to be able to talk about what services you have. As a matter of fact,
how are you going to present yourself?
Yeah, I mean? In fact, as a matter of fact, that is going to happen. And I don't think we're going to walk back from that. So what does that mean, though, from a competitive standpoint? And this is really the core of what I think, Amiee, you were trying to say about the BAP, the Buyer Agency Professional course, which is, this course is about presenting you,
right,
and presenting value and raising the level of professionalism within the industry.
That's right.
Along the lines of maybe how some people are used to the competitiveness and the level of professionalism on the listing side of the business. And so maybe we can take this point to jump right into to just talk about kind of the three big things that people are going to get out of this BAP course. Can we start there? Right. Maybe, Amiee, if you want to start.
Well, I see a lot of these questions coming up here, Toby, that, well, what do we do in this case? But how are we going to say this? We don't have time today, in your little infomercial, but it's really, this isn't the class, but you will get those answers in class. And so one of the things I think that is the best thing about BAP is that it's going to answer questions for all of the mind virus that we've had going on for a while, right?
Would you say mind virus?
Mind virus, because everybody's watching, the news is saying one thing, half the time, they're not accurate. You got all these Facebook groups saying another thing. You got advice coming from people out there. People are breaking antitrust stuff all over the place, talking about commissions left and right. You're going to get good, solid, accredited, education with solutions and practices and worksheets and everything to move forward, to go through the storm and come out on the other side.
Yeah, and I think
we're not messing around. It's a great class, guys.
I think it's important to say too here, during this whole time, the kind of raising level of professionalism, you probably should not be, well, you definitely should not be talking to your competitors about commissions and splits and how much you're going to charge for representation. Understand, don't further the antitrust, problems here. And we don't talk about, how much you should charge in the course at all. You can't. It puts everybody in jeopardy. So please don't do that. But what we can talk about is the concept of securing your professional fees. And I think what we can do is just break this down. I'll tell you the three big things that you're going to get in the buyer agency professional course. And this was paramount to you as an individual to raise your level of professionalism to the point that you can be differentiated in the marketplace against the people who don't do this, because they don't see what's happening. They don't see what's coming. And they're going to be behind the ball. And that is, number one, you're going to need to be able to create your own value proposition, your unique value proposition. Like, why you in the marketplace? And maybe I could just get some feedback from Steve and Amiee. Like, why is that important to be able to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, especially when it comes to representing buyers in this new world?
I mean, I can speak to that.
Yeah.
It's important because it's a dog eat dog world out there, right? And now that the buyer is going to be, they're in a position where they can negotiate their fees for themselves between them and the agent, right? You're gonna have to be able to tell them, because things aren't falling in your lap anymore. There's no unilateral offer of compensation that's guaranteed, like Steve talked about. Okay, you got to be able to understand, not to present your value. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. You got to know it. That's the problem with a bunch of, and I'm not knocking agents out there, but we BAP helps you sit down and say, why am I valuable, and why and how am I different from the other agents out there? And we have practices in the class, then worksheets and stuff, and that we go through. I mean, you're going to dive into yourself and find out, here's what I bring somebody. You're going to discover why
you're on that. So on that, I'm going to try to channel my best Steve and tell a little story, because here's the question. And everybody gets this question today. And here's currently how it has been answered to this point. So a friend calls you, a brother calls you, a sister, an uncle, somebody from down at the coffee shop calls you and says, hey, you know what? I'm really interested in buying a home. Can you help me out? Yeah. As a matter of fact, I can help you out. I'm a licensed agent. Oh, great. Well, how does this all work? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Do you know what you want? Yeah, I know what I want. We're going to put you on a search, right? So you'll be getting stuff from me on a search. It'll come every day. And when you see something you like, I'll put you in my car. We'll drive around. We'll look at 8, 9, 10 homes, right? And then you like something, I'm going to negotiate a sweet deal for you. I'm going to get you a great price on that house. And then you're going to close on it, and you're going to have the house of your dreams. How's that sound? Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want, right? Because then comes the first question. And the question is, but how much does that cost me as a buyer? How much is that going to cost me? Well, don't worry about it. Commission's built into the price of the house. Sellers already get, seller's paying. You don't have to worry about it. It's already built in. You don't have to come up with the extra cash right now, nothing. Oh, well, all right. Well, let's go. That's the question now. But what happens come July when the question is, oh, well, what, you're going to show me home? Yeah, I'm going to show you homes, going to set you up in search, going to negotiate a sweet deal, going to get the house of your dreams. How much does that cost me? Well, that's going to cost you $18,000. What? What do you mean? $18,000. What do you do for $18,000? And then why you? That's the question that you got to be ready for.
There are so many questions in the comments here, Toby, that, like all these questions, I see so many great questions, and almost every single one of them that I've seen so far is answered in BAP.
Yeah.
And I think they want us to answer them today, but I mean, we just don't have time.
Yeah.
You will get those answers in BAP. I can guarantee it.
So first off, you will learn how to create a unique value proposition to you. We will tease it out. You will work on it. It will be yours, and it will be unique to how you're going to compete in the marketplace. Steve, what's the next thing that we cover in the BAP course, and why is it important?
What do we talk about, Amiee? We talk about the value proposition.
Yeah.
Talk about your mission statement.
Yeah.
On what you more of a global picture from a mission statement. Then you've
Yeah.
got your own value proposition, which is your way of doing business there. What I want to go back and say here, Toby, and I think you hit the nail on the head with that little example you gave. You didn't have to sell yourself. You didn't have to sell yourself. And even today, because we're not there yet, right? We're not in July or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I've had agents tell me in transactions, well, I'll just accept whatever the listing agent is paying.
Yeah.
That tells me you don't even know what your own value is.
Right, exactly. Like if you can't determine how much is, but one of the other things, Toby, that the next phase of this class, like, we've got the mission statement, the value prop, but we also go through an entire two scenarios of a buyer presentation.
Oh yeah,
for people,
that's the next thing.
under what conditions you might have one different presentation for this, a different presentation for that. We go through the tools that you get with the class, so people will go, oh, it's not free. There's a costless class. Yeah, there's a cost to it.
Yeah, the price is $199.
You get Cato with it, which is a fabulous marketing tool to create videos, to send out presentations to people, to do all kinds of things. And then you get Breakthrough Broker with it, which is a really well-known platform for marketing tools and stuff too. Those two tools that you get are worth more than $199.
So those two tools were specifically put in. You get free access to them for 6 months while you're doing it. But the tools were really built because the second piece to this course, the second thing you get is first you get who are you, why you in the marketplace, your value prop. But the next thing is, how do you present that? How do you demonstrate your value where you've never had it before? You just said, hey, I'll write you a deal, and oh, don't worry about it, seller will pay. But now they say, what do you do for $18,000?
And we're going to show you how to present that to somebody.
Exactly right. We're going to show you exactly how to present that. We're going to show you exactly how to create a menu of 30, 40, 50 menu items that describes exactly what you're going to do for that client. It gives you 2 marketing platforms that you can use together in order to actually demonstrate that message so you can look as big and professional as you want, because you are going to be competing much like the listing side of the program where people they expect a listing presentation. You're going to need to have a buyer presentation that demonstrates your value. And you're going to need to stand out, and you're going to need to look polished and professional. I tell you what, I have people that talk about, we just talked about why do you get paid $18,000? I have some people who've been in the business for 10, 20, 30 years. They're licking their chops in this new world. No longer, I'm looking at the people who are on here who've been in the business for over 20 years. You're looking at this going, I am the expert in my neighborhood. And I've had to settle for a commission that's been negotiated on the listing side of the deal.
Right.
I'm representing a buyer.
Somebody else negotiated my fee for me.
Somebody else. In a weird, odd twist of fate, you may see commission prices go up.
You might.
And up for
I don't have somebody else negotiating it for me.
Right. So why wouldn't I, as a better negotiator, negotiate a higher rate for me? Because I can demonstrate the value. And I've raised my level of professionalism in a way where I'm accountable to that.
And how about how creative we can get about what we're going to bring the consumer, Toby? Right. That's what I love about BAP too. We come up with ideas of like, what are you going to bring on? Yeah. What are you going to bring the consumer? You're going to have to decide the cost. But what are you going to bring them? I mean, it's such a great time to be in real estate right now.
So let's move on to the third part to this course, which is really it's where everything comes home. And it's probably the trickiest part on a state-by-state basis. Yeah. And it really comes down to having an agreement between you and the buyer that says what you're going to get paid and what you have to do to get paid. Mm-hmm. Secure your professional fees. Mm-hmm. Why is that important? I mean, maybe Steve, you can give us an understanding of what's happening around the country on this, because not everybody has buyer representation agreement. In fact, I have a poll question. Maybe I'll ask the poll question first, Steve, and then I really want you to set this up for us. So everybody, here's your chance to participate again. We know that there's about 18 states in the country that currently recognize buyer representation agreements. We're in Minnesota here, and we've had buyer representation agreements for years. Even those will probably change, but what won't change is you're going to need to describe what you're going to do for your money. And that is for sure going to happen. So let's do this. I'm going to ask this question. Does your state use buyer representation agreements? Yes or no? Or not sure? It's okay if you answer not sure. Once again, these are all anonymous. I'd just like to see how many people, look at this. I think it's overwhelming one way. Does your state currently use buyer representation agreements? Everybody, if you can, throw it into the chat, your answers. We're up one. I'm going to go count down real fast. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I'll share the results. Look at this. We're over 58% say yes. How about that? 58% of our of the people on here say that we already have buyer representation agreements. Good for you. Some of the hardest part of this whole thing is already kind of figured out for you, maybe, or at least closer to where the end game is going to be. It is in flux. States are jumping on it. I know that we may even have regulators on this call right now, or like, how are you guys? How is this being treated nationally? And by all means, you know, you can ask us questions at any time, and we'll share everything we know with you. We're not lawyers, we're not making law, we're not doing anything like that, but we can definitely share what we know. And we have faculty all over the country that actually help contribute to this course and contribute to our understanding of buyer representation. So 12% said no. So, and then 29% say not sure, and that's fine. All right, so let's stop sharing. You know what? I have one more question. And this is kind of, and I kind of missed this. And so if you would just be patient with me, I'd like to ask one more question. We just talked about having a buyer representation presentation. I'm wondering, since we have such a high number of people that have buyer representation agreements in your state, would you be honest and answer, and this is for everybody, do you currently, here's a poll, a new poll is up, everybody. If you're on your phone, go to the poll screen. Do you currently deliver a buyer representation presentation? Do you do one? You know, not yet, or sort of, but it could be better, really. And now that you're talking about it, I probably got to, you know, really think about this. Or I do, and it works brilliantly, meaning I think I'm all set for the new world. I'd love to see this. It's anonymous. Please take a moment to answer. Look at the answer. They're rolling in, so they're still coming in fast. Everybody's still playing. I'm going to give 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end the poll right here, and I'll share. This is interesting. Not yet. 58% say not yet. I don't do anything. Some of them could be people sitting in class. I get it. You guys are lucky. Those people that are sitting in licensing, you'll learn when you come into the industry real quick, you're going to learn real fast the new way, and you won't be beholden to the old way. Sort of, but it could be better. So 32%, right? And then look at this. I don't know. I do, and it works brilliantly. Only 11%. Good for you, 11%. Polish your game, because I'll tell you what, in 9 months, 6 months to 9 months, this will be flipped.
I think so. You know, Toby, only 24%, the 80% of agents out there have a listing presentation. 82%, I think, is what it was. Only 24% have a buyer presentation. Yeah. You know, and that just speaks to, like, you when it comes to the listing side of things, we were taught to sit down, have a meeting with someone. You would never list a house without a contract. You wouldn't throw the sign in the yard, start advertising.
It's against the law, but yes.
You know, but for some reason we did that with buyers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have not been responsible to buyers. We haven't, you know, had presentations for them. We haven't had contracts for them. We haven't been responsible. We have on the listing side.
I agree.
So many questions in here. We're going to get you there, you guys. I wish I could answer all of them.
Steve, talk to us. We've got create your value proposition, buyer representation presentation with some unique marketing tools for you. They're solid, severe. And then finally we have how to secure your buyer representation fee, your professional fee. What should they know? What happens in the course about that?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna give you a very large list, right? We spent a lot of time putting this together. What do we do for buyers? I go back to what you both just talked about in the last 2 minutes here. How many of you would ever take a listing without doing a listing presentation, right? Now, listen, we've had in Minnesota here, we've had buyer broker contracts for 30 years. I'm not convinced everyone in Minnesota is doing a buyer presentation. I have done it always for the last 30 years, right? And so you've got to go in, you've got to meet these people, you've got to create some trust. I want to be their trusted advisor in the transaction. And I'm going to lay out, as I just said, we're going to give you a gigantic list of things you are going to do and you may even add some things to that list, right? But these are things you're going to do to show them, hey, it's not just meeting you, opening a door of the house and writing up a contract. There's way more than that. We've done a bad job in our industry of not creating more transparency. Why didn't we do that? We didn't have to. Go back to what I told you a half hour ago. You knew the commission was going to be there, right? You knew you were going to get paid. Folks, that world is gone. That train will leave the station in July of this year. So that's probably the biggest reason I'd want to sit through this class if I were out there thinking about it.
And that's great. I love that. Moving into this part about securing a professional fee, then we've had some questions come through. I saw come through because I think it's all about what agreement do you use? What does your state allow? What does the state require? Right? Those are going to be important things that you're going to have to understand in your state what is required and what is allowed. But what we can talk about is the different ways to demonstrate your value to people, because like Steve said, there may be a menu of services you do, and you may actually have a variable pay when it comes to your services you provide. Like, I will provide these services as your buyer rep when I do all of this, the whole enchilada. But if you really just want me to show you one house and I'm just going to have agreement with you for like a one-time showing agreement where it's one house, I may describe that as just for this house, and these are the services I do for that house. And maybe I charge a different rate. That is also covered in the course.
Well, the solutions to that, I mean, and also solutions of how not to charge a different rate. I'm seeing these questions here. We're going to tell you how to ask for the commission in the contract. We've got the language from credible sources that we've verified. We're going to tell you, the different, like you said, these different levels of pay, but also what about shortening the period of time? Like, I'm going to have a exclusive buyer rep agreement with you for 1 day. It's kind of like we're going to go on our first date, and then we can expand it if we'd like after that. But what we don't want to do is scare people off. We want to believe in ourselves and then help these agents out there get solutions. You might do a sliding fee scale thing, but really, you're going to know what you're worth, and it's all about what the buyer needs. I don't know. I mean, I'm a big fan, Toby, of shortening up the contract terms, as far as time is concerned, rather than shortening up my pay.
You're right on. Right on. So there's but one question I think we could probably cover it really quick, just to give them a taste of what you go into, because I think it's a big question. And the question was, can the buyer pay the buyer's agent commission by financing it in the mortgage?
Oh, you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You
can't call it closing costs.
Right. So give us a little primer.
Okay. So the banks have something called interested party contributions. Okay. IPCs is what they're calling that. And you can have a seller pay closing costs on the buyer's behalf. Right. And that's been,
done for years, right?
Done for years. Right? And then, of course, the mind virus starts, and all these agents are like, well, we'll just put it into the buyer's closing costs. You can't do that. You're not a bank or title cost. Okay. You can't just all of a sudden shove your real estate fees into that category and pretend like that's where they belong. So the answer to that is no, you can't. Okay. And the banks will not allow it. And that we have the information on this, Toby. But what you can do is the buyer can ask the seller via the contract. Remember, the purchase agreement is between the buyer and the seller. You don't have anything to do with it as an agent or real estate company, but the buyer can certainly ask the seller, I, buyer, ask you, seller, to pay on my behalf X amount of dollars to ABC Realty at closing. And at closing, that charge will not be on the buyer's side. It'll be on the seller's side of the closing disclosure. The closing statement. So, I mean, yes, we'll tell you exactly how to do that and the language you should put in the contract to do it.
So understand that that's a big change. It's a big distinction. And those are the kind of tricky things that you need to be aware of going through this. And these are the kind of things where there is legislation, there's pieces coming, there are things, but right now, this is what, and then what does it mean on the listing side?
Oh
even?
my God. People need to
Right?
take this class.
Right? What does it mean on the listing side? So how
Yeah.
do I prepare my seller to the fact that the seller comes in and says, well, hey, now that we're not paying commissions, I want to lower, well, hold on.
No,
Because
it's not just like asking to pay points.
yeah, because
No.
we're not just asking to pay points.
No, you
That
guys, you got to take the class.
somebody may be asking us to pay the buyer's costs at the time of contract. How are you going to prepare your seller for that? So
Yeah.
understanding all these bits and pieces is going to be important, and understanding how it works from the buyer side helps you understand how it's got to work from the seller side.
Oh my God. Can I make a suggestion here, guys? I've been in the business here 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And I'd love to answer some of these questions, but at the same time, I see these questions and I think you need to take the buyer's course because you're saying things that aren't true. Like, so, do me a favor, guys, in this business, right? Get the education that you need so that you can speak truthfully with conviction to the public and to other people, okay? Because I'm seeing a bunch of stuff going on here.
Yeah.
And make sure it's accurate, okay? Because when you start saying things that aren't correct is when it brings the entire industry down. That's another reason to go to BAP, because this is such a tumultuous time, right, in our industry. And if there's one thing that Steve and I would like to do is to stabilize you. Yeah. I mean, just stop the mind virus, please.
The mind virus. Get a foundation, get a clear understanding of the picture now, right?
Yeah.
That's what you will get.
Stop
and
nonsense, please.
And it'll help you understand how you need to compete by raising your level of professionalism.
Thank you, Hannah.
Beyond where it has been to this point, truly beyond. We had 11% out of this large audience that's on here. 11% said, I'm already doing a presentation. I'm already doing buyer representation, and good for you. Yeah, you're on your way, but get ready because you're going to have to up your game again.
You are.
And maybe you need the new tools. Maybe you need the right marketing tools.
Maybe you need the right information.
And the right information, the right marketing tools that are going to present you right professionally. There's a lot of one-person shops out there are going to look like a very large organization with some of these marketing tools out there. And they're not lying to anybody, but these tools are pretty spectacular.
And so is Kaplan, for the research that you guys have done, Toby, to bring this information to people in a way that is correct and responsible. Because I'm out there, guys. I see what's going on in masterminds, in social media, and someone said hashtag stifle the mind virus. I'm with you. Let's make it happen, Bob.
Yeah.
Because this is good stuff, Toby, that you brought out.
So, Steve, any closing thoughts for everybody? Otherwise, I got one last poll question for everybody.
Not lying.
We've covered a lot of good information here. I saw one of the questions. Well, what about the amount that you can pay for closing costs? Folks, you don't use the closing costs. We'll show you. We'll show you in the class. You don't use the closing costs.
It's so dangerous to say stuff like that.
There's so much misinformation going on out there right now. We do not use the closing costs from the seller standpoint. It's a totally separate issue here, and this has been verified, and we've got that information.
I don't know where people are getting this information.
Yeah.
The maximum amount that a seller can contribute. I saw this stuff.
Your
commission is not involved in that, right?
Can a seller pay the buyer broker's commission? Yes. Got to have it in writing. Can a seller also pay some buyer's closing costs? Yes. In the same transaction.
Can a listing broker pay a buyer's broker? Yes.
There are limitations on that. Is it an FHA loan? Is it a conventional loan? Is it a VA loan, right? Is it a USDA loan? You do have some limitations in that regard there. But we talk about all those things in the class there to try to clear things up.
So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask one last poll question, and it's really kind of a self-gratifying one, but I'm really interested after this webinar, and thank you guys both for being here. Are you interested as a part of this class? Are you interested in taking the BAP course and applying for your designation after this webinar? I'd really like to see it. And I'm not afraid to share the results here so you can see. Please answer truthfully. Is this something that you think you would find value in? Because we're telling you, there's a sea change coming to our industry. and either you're a part of it or you're not. And I can tell you, in my 30 plus years of being licensed, this is the biggest change that I've seen come along. And Steve's right. Steve said the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So here we go. I'm going to end this poll in 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to share the results. Well, how about that? Look at that. We're making an influence, at least a little bit of an influence. 12% said, or 2% said no. Well, good on you. You probably may be one of those ones who got it all figured out, and I'm glad for you. Need to think about it some, 23%, quarter of us. And then I'm very interested in taking it. So 64% are like, yeah, I think I'm going to take this. And look at that. 12% said, sign me up. If you want to sign up, Jamie Cash will drop the URL in the chat. I know she's done it a couple times already. And you're going to be able to go there and you can sign up for the class. The next one is on the 18th of April, and they are filling up, as a matter of fact. So this is the first time we've offered it to our students here through this webinar. And so find yourselves to the website, grab a class date that works for you. I think we've got them scheduled out through May. As they fill, it gets pushed out. So please go ahead and jump on it. Steve, Amiee, I just want to say thank you so
you're
much.
welcome.
Thank you for all your heavy lifting on this course. Thank you, everybody, for coming to our real expert presentation. And we look forward to updating you more. And we look forward to seeing you in our BAP course and then applying for the designation.
And it runs every 2 weeks, doesn't it, Steve?
Yeah.
Isn't
I
that what we
think
figured out with
about
me?
twice a month. Yeah.
Yeah, so about every 2 weeks,
right
guys,
now.
you can go online. It's live online.
And we will add sessions as needed. So,
Yeah, we certainly will.
and it'll be updated as we go. So you will get the most current and accurate information available. All right, let's do this. I'm going to go ahead
I'm
and
so excited about it, Toby. I would just want everyone to come because there's so much good information. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited. You know what? It's a hard market. And so is our chance during a hard market to improve yourself through education and training and differentiate yourself as we come through this low cycle into a better cycle. You know, I hear a lot of people talk about 2025 with high hopes. Hopefully you're prepared and ready to go. All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Amiee. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Toby. Bye, Steve.
Have a great
Take care,
day.
guys.
Bye-bye.